So I like this. There's a lot to like.
Do you think you have to be a doctor to own this?
I'm not sure.
Said Acquisitions Anonymous.
Hello, another episode of Acquisitions Anonymous.
We don't have 100% geared in.
Welcome to another edition of Acquisitions Anonymous. I'm Heather Anderson, and today we have the whole crew, and we won't put you to sleep, but we will talk about a sleep medical practice that does CPAP machines and attention deficit disorder treatment. It has great margins, and we had a good discussion, a lively discussion that will not put you to sleep.
This episode of Acquisitions Anonymous is sponsored by Acquisition Lab. Acquisition Lab and their team, they've been longtime supporters of the pod, and they provide a really great service for people who are looking to acquire a business. So it's created by Walker Dybel, who's become a friend, the author of Buy Then Build, How to Outsmart the Startup Game. So Acquisition Lab's an accelerator with a highly vetted, cohort-based educational and support community for people who are serious about buying a business. So a lot of our listeners like you tune in every week to our deal reviews. You want to get in on buying a business. You're on this podcast because you're trying to learn how to buy a business. But if you're not quite sure where to start, Acquisition Lab is a great place to start. So they exist to help people buy a business and to navigate all those complexities of the process, everything you hear us talk about on the show. They provide a proven framework, tools, and resources that support you all the way from search to close. They do it. There's a whole bunch of educational material and support. So if you're serious about buying a business, check out acquisitionlab.com, or you can actually email the program director, Chelsea Wood, directly. Her email is chelsea@buythenbuild.com.
Well, the good news, Heather, is this is 100% Gen X podcast today. We don't have to worry about any of those children, our co-hosts, showing up.
And you know it's going to be good. This is going to be great.
It's going to be good. Well, nobody will pay attention to us, and we'll feel slighted about it, but we won't care, or we'll act like we don't care. That's what we think.
Ignore us. It's fine. Oh, a young'un.
Our millennial co-host has arrived.
Don't lump me in with those people.
Well, Heather and I already got started. It's good to see you, Bill.
Oh, good. So I'm live trashing the millennials. Fantastic. I am an elder millennial, I learned. I am, while technically a millennial, I'm 1985. I am like of the oldest old millennials, or exennial.
So
I've heard myself called as well.
So you're saying you're special and unique, not like those other millennials who all think they're special and unique?
Yes, I'm not like those other special, unique snowflakes. I'm my own kind.
Cool. All right. Well, I brought a deal that is a sleep disorder and attention deficit disorder medical practice. And so the price is $5 million. Annual revenue is $2.8 million. Can I tell you guys some more about this?
Please.
Ooh, yes.
Cool. All right. So $5 million asking price, annual revenue, $2.8 million, net cash flow, $1.8 million. And is located in the healthcare industry in Michigan. And for over 3 decades, the company has been at the forefront of providing specialized care for individuals struggling with sleep disorders and attention deficit disorders. The clinic, located in the Detroit, Michigan area, is dedicated to offering the highest quality of care, backed by years of experience and expertise in the field of clinical neurophysiology. As a long-standing sleep medicine practice in the area, the company has established a strong reputation and a loyal patient base. The longevity speaks to the clinic's commitment to providing quality care over many years, and additionally, the clinic's accreditation by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine further validates its adherence to high standards of practices. One of the company's competitive advantages is its comprehensive range of services. Beyond sleep medicine, the clinic also offers attention deficit treatments and clinical research. This breadth of services allows the clinic to cater to a wide range of patient needs. Furthermore, the company enjoys a robust referral network from local physicians, contributing to a steady stream of new patients. This network reinforces the clinic's reputation as a trusted provider of sleep medicine services. The company's services include sleep medicine, attention deficit, and clinical research, and they primarily serve adults 18 to 30, and most of its clientele, approximately 90%, seek treatment for sleep disorders. The remaining 10% of patients are diagnosed with ADD, attention deficit disorders. The clinic caters to a local patient base within a 20 miles radius of its location, and the reason for selling is the owner plans to retire. So we have this $1.8 million net cash flow medical practice for sale for $5 million in the Detroit, Michigan area. What do we think?
Well, I like the picture of the machine that helps you sleep. the sleep
CPAP?
apnea machine. Yeah, the CPAP machine. Thank you. So we know what they do. They provide folks who have problems with sleeping with some of those machines. I've never heard of attention deficit and sleep as a practice that goes together. I guess it makes sense probably in the science, but I'd never heard of that. So that's a little interesting. But whenever I look at a medical practice, I think, you know, this is pretty tough for someone who's not already a physician in this field to buy it.
I wonder if these are physicians who are given this service.
You think they may not be physicians? It says neurophysiology, so maybe they're PhDs or
Because there's these like kind of tangential medical services that happen, like fertility, right? That we've talked about. Sometimes those aren't MDs. This may not be an MD. This may be a person who's like, I'm just using some best practices or some, something that doesn't require a medical license.
I think CPAPs, I think you need a prescription. I'm not sure.
Okay.
For some of this stuff, I think you need a prescription.
I know about these.
Okay.
My buddy is in this space, and you do require a prescription. And then there's another group of people for CPAPs, for example, that are the physical therapists that they basically come in and they're the ones that fit the mask to you and make sure you're not going to like choke to death and stuff like that. So it's definitely regulated medicine.
Okay.
So I like that. I agree with Heather. I think the ADHD thing is a little bit of a weird bedfellow with the sleep clinic. It says it's 90% sleep disorder or 10% ADD. So I wonder if like one of their practitioners got a side certification and like started doing this. Or I'm not an expert, but I'm not sure how much Venn diagram overlap there is in the science on sleep disorders and ADHD. I'm sure that some people have both, but I'm not sure how related they are.
One thing to me that's totally crazy about the way medicine is regulated in the US, and this is tangentially only related to this, but like when you become a doctor, like you can basically like prescribe all kinds of stuff and you can treat all kinds of stuff. Like they don't specialize it. So like I had an acquaintance and she was an OB, and like I looked up at one point and like this person was like making a ton of money selling testosterone therapy to like all of my male friends. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, how are you a specialist? Like, how does the law let you, who has no expertise in this, doesn't practice it regularly, just be like, yeah, your testosterone looks low. Here's some drugs. And kind of the same thing, like to your point, like this person is clearly a sleep doctor, right? And specializes in that. And they're like, oh, hey, you have ADD. Would you like some, would you like some drugs to go with that? Like to me, it's just kind of crazy how we do it.
It is. Indeed. But I mean, you do take all those classes in medical school like once, years ago,
right?
And they, then don't keep up on it if it's not your specialty, but they don't care.
Right. And what this teaser doesn't tell me, which is the first thing I think about when I think about medical practices, is the payer mix. Yeah. How much of this that's the first thing, right? How much of this is private insurance? How much of this might be Medicare, Medicaid? I mean, some practices are all Medicare, Medicaid. It totally drives the value of the business because you look at payer risk, right? What are the risks of those different payer channels changing the reimbursement rate? How much have they changed it in the past? When might they change it again? So, I mean, it looks like they're getting fairly good margins on what they're doing, which is also something we think of as, maybe they're at risk for a reduction in reimbursement rate, depending on who's paying them. So that's the first thing I want to know when I look at something that has to do with medical.
Super interesting. The business broker, I just Googled his name and number, and he's located in Long Island, or no, upstate New York, Westchester, New York, like nowhere near Detroit.
I'm seeing that more and more, where the business broker is not local to the business, which I guess is fine. The lenders have done it long ago. Lenders used to kind of try to stay local, and some small banks still do, but all the kind of medium size and up banks are all national now. So I guess, the brokers can somewhat do the same thing. It sort of seems like you have to go do a site visit, though. I wonder if these brokers do that.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of times these brokers get listings because they were the college roommate of the doctor. You know, same
Right.
same way one of my relatives is a real estate broker, and I look at all of his listings and it's all like people he's related to. Like all of his listings are that, or our high school friends. So
It's like wealth advisors, right? Same idea.
Correct.
So
I knew somebody who went into insurance and they basically just insured, like they got all the premiums from insuring their family's real estate holdings. And then they were like, anybody else, like that's fine, but this pays my full time.
So
because the real estate was significant enough that it could support a
Horizontal
full-time insurance
integration.
broker.
Yeah.
So an anecdote for you guys about turning social capital into money, which is kind of the thing we're talking about, right? Like, so is I did not have an enjoyable high school experience, and I went to high school here at the same high school my kids went to. I did not enjoy it. I did not fit in. It was not great. But there was a period like in my 30s where like seemingly every other week I would get a call from somebody I went to high school with, and they were like, "Hey, Girdley, like how's it going? Like, you know, I remember you from the high school days. Hey, I wanted to take you to lunch and talk to you about your insurance needs or your wealth planning needs." Like, I know. And I would just be like, "Bro, I didn't like you in high school, and I don't think we're gonna like each other now." So, but it was just like, you know, and that's what they tell you when you go do the wealth management business. Like, okay, open up all your contacts and start calling all of your relatives and ask them for money. Like that's the training plan. And so these guys were doing it, and I was like, but somehow I ended up in the part of the list where it's like, oh, people that didn't like each other. Well, I'll call them anyway.
Well, it's like you never would eat lunch with me even once in high school, and now you want to have lunch with me.
No, you threw food at me in high school.
Michael, were you 6'5" in high school?
So I had a really weird high school scenario. Like I grew 5 inches in high school and I lost 100 pounds. So like when I started in high school, I was
that's like two different people.
Yeah.
I was like two different. No, like there's, you know, like in my junior year, I saw my son do this exact same thing. In my junior year, I decided that I didn't like the way I looked and I didn't like the way I felt. And I was 260 pounds. To put it in perspective, I'm 225 right now, right? And taller. And I was 6'2", 6'3", and 260 pounds. I didn't like it. And I just decided like I was just going to live a Spartan lifestyle. And I was just going to like not eat. And so within the span of like 9 months, I lost 90 pounds. And it was just through sheer force of will. I started swimming. And like I was that kid who left for summer and came back and they're like, "Where's the other half of you?" Like that was how it was. Yeah. And so I went from 260 to 170 and I was 6'2", and I did that in 9 months. And I saw my son he's not overweight, but I saw him do the same thing in his life. Just like that maturity thing happened from 17 to 18. So to answer your question, Mills, I finished it at like 6'3.5", 6'4", 170, 180 pounds. I started at like 6 foot and 240 pounds and was a different person between the two.
So back to the deal.
No problem sleeping though.
So I actually really like this industry. Yep. So here's why I like it. Problems sleeping are highly correlated to a couple things: being overweight, having a lot of blue light exposure from screens late at night. And both of those things are only up and to the right. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, there are other things, but like these are two big causes of not sleeping so great. Mm-hmm. And so you've got this kind of cyclical tailwind that is driving people into your office. More and more people have sleep apnea. More and more people have CPAPs, et cetera. And also once you have a CPAP, like that's your doctor and your patient. And you probably got to come back every so often to, make sure the CPAP is working. There's definitely a residual income stream here as well, which I would want to understand if I was diligencing this business. There's kind of an average order value, an AOV in e-commerce terms, and then there's an LTV, a lifetime value of these people. I also want to understand how this clinic makes money. Like, do they make money just from the visit, or do I get to sell them the CPAP? Do I get to sell them consumables for the CPAP, et cetera, over time? So I like this. There's a lot to like.
Do you think you have to be a doctor to own this?
I'm not sure.
Hey, Michael here. If you're a leader in business, you don't want to spend hours searching for the best way to do things. You just want answers. And that's exactly why we created ScalePath. ScalePath is an online community for small business CEOs like you to connect, learn, and grow your business. As a member, you'll join a group of peers all over the country helping each other solve the problems that every small business faces. Plus, you'll get access to an entire library of playbooks, templates, and expert Q&A video calls. I'm in the Slack channels every day chatting with owners and operators just like you, and it's online, available 24/7, and works to your schedule, unlike other peer groups. If you're a business making over $500,000 annually in revenue, we'd love to hear from you. Go to joinscalepath.com, use the code AAPOD, and you'll save $100 off your first month of membership. That's joinscalepath.com and use code AAPOD code for your first month discount. Now, back to the show.
You'd have to do an MSO if you weren't a doctor, most likely, and a medical service organization. It's a legal vehicle basically to get around the regulation, and the regulation, it varies by state, but it usually says whoever has the license to perform the service has to own the company that does the billing for that service. Mm-hmm. So an MSO is kind of where you set up a shell billing company that's owned by the physician, and then you and all that income passes through to the OPCO, which you own. So you can do it, but it's tricky. It's done in med spa, because it's a little less medical there. I don't know how often. Maybe private equity probably does it more than anyone else for regular medical practices like this.
We probably need to bring on a business broker who specializes in medical practices at some point. I think that'd be good because every time we wade into one of these, I'm like, wow, this seems really awesome. How can I buy this? And then I'm like, your questions, Bill's like, I don't know. Like
it's like 2.5 times. I agree with you guys. At face value, this seems like a great business. It's a pretty fair price. It's ridiculously high margin. Other than the fact that it's in Detroit, which I think Detroit's really cool and have spent time there relatively recently, but I think you don't have like tons of people flocking there like you do other markets.
Is there not potential technology disruption for this CPAP machine, though? I feel like I've seen it recently where there's like an alternative to it that's not this giant machine on your face.
I think there have been some things like that. Right?
Yeah. All right. True. We can pivot.
So there was a long conversation in our office this morning about somebody has a colonoscopy coming up, and it turned into a very long conversation. But one of the guys was like, "Why don't you just get that thing that you can order online where you poop in the box?" So, to me, right, that's one of those disruptive things where people are saying, "Hey, we can provide maybe not the full screening, for a colonoscopy and colon cancer." But we can get you kind of halfway there with some direct-to-consumer e-commerce. And to your point, Heather, maybe there is something like that in this industry that isn't a prescribed medical device, but it's something that is kind of gets you halfway there and maybe is disruptive.
So in terms of the value chain, the way I've seen it work around CPAP machines is, there's a medical practice like this that's doing the studies and doing kind of high margin medical work. And then there is another group of people who are the medical supply companies, and they are the ones that have the respiratory therapists, and they're the ones that are buying and selling and maintaining the CPAP machines. And if you're on oxygen or whatever it is, like those are all kind of that stuff. That low margin crap is totally insurance paid and a horrible business, and is not typically part of one of these high margin medical practices. It's put into the medical supply kind of separate set of companies. And those are very, very often privately owned and very hard businesses.
Yes, I've seen my share of those where people thought about buying them. And I agree with you. They're pretty tough businesses, very dependent on the physicians to refer them in, and fairly low margin.
And you are getting hammered left and right by concentrated insurance providers. And I know friends in those businesses, and the things they say and talk about what the insurance companies do to them. It's just like, and it's horrible because the insurance companies refuse to pay you. They pay you late. They come up with reasons not to pay you. They're insurance companies. That's the way they work. They're incompetent. You have no choice but to work with them. And then your clients who really, the insurance company screws you over as the medical supply vendor, but then the patients and the doctors blame you for everything going wrong. Like, for example, if the insurance company refuses to pay a profitable amount of reimbursement for a service, the referring doctors and the insurance people will blame you for not taking a loss to support the patient. Like it is just it's just a byproduct of how insane our system is. Sorry to be a downer.
No, I mean it's wild though how much money, changes hands in the healthcare space. It's just unbelievable. I mean, the most expensive roofing jobs we do are on hospitals, and it's not because they're the best roofs necessarily. It's just like the nature of the beast. I think on this deal, I mean, if you have a friend who is a physician who is entrepreneurial and you live in this market, like to me, that's the ideal buyer. And you say, hey, I'll partner with you on it and I'll, help put the deal together. I'll help provide, all the back end admin services for the business. You provide the medical oversight. And like we said, maybe you don't even have to be I don't know what specialist this is, but it's like, maybe you don't even have to be this specific specialist to own it.
Well, the way that a lot of these end up transitioning, like I know this from friends who are like radiologists, right? They're in radiology practices, and that's a racket too, right? They'll own not only the practice, but then the group will also own like the screening centers. And then they just happen to send all of their patients to the screening centers. And it's just like, oh man, such a racket. Anyway, So the way a lot of these groups and practices end up transitioning is they'll bring on new doctors who come in out of training. And then they will, allow them to buy in over time. They'll give them a job and then they buy in over time to where they own shares in the practice. And then eventually like the next group comes in and they can get bought out when they want to retire. So I forgot who asked, like, should a doctor own this? I think that's probably why this is priced at like 2.5 times earnings, despite being low gross margin, consistent revenue. It's like the buyer here is somebody who is an owner operator and comes in and buys themselves a job. And I think typically something like this would transition because the person comes in and starts to just take over the practice for this person. And then they go off into the sunset.
Heather, have you ever worked? I know your predecessor firm, there were all the, the vertical kind of focus. And I think dental is one of their big focuses, but it reminds me of that, where you have these folks who are coming out of dental school and they go, do I start my own thing? Or I found somebody, they're a great fit. And there's kind of the rules of thumb are just so well established. And I can't remember what they are, but it's like
in dental, they really are. Like it's a formula. There's a couple of companies that actually ended up getting bought by Wells Fargo and B of A. So now they're part of that, but they used to be independent companies that's all they did was specialize in dental practice startups or expansions. And I worked with them many years ago. They didn't want to do the real estate loans for the dentists. So I would do their real estate loans. And they showed me their little grid, and it was, statistically very, very good. This is what a good practice looks like. You look at these things, it has to be in these ranges, and boom, if it's there, we lend. And if it's not, we don't. And so, you can definitely, when you verticalize, do that. Now, with dentists, it makes sense to verticalize because you have enough of them, enough of a market size. I don't know if it does for sleep apnea, right? Like maybe you could make a small vertical, but anytime a bank does verticals, it's really, really fascinating because they learn so much better how to spot the good ones from the mediocre in that industry.
And Michael, to your point, it's almost like, I wonder, there's got to be somebody there's a broker out there who's done, a dozen or 2 dozen or 3 dozen of these. Like there's somebody out there who's like, that's all I do, is I help. And I go to the industry association and I let everybody know that I'm the guy whenever they think about this.
I wonder why more brokers don't verticalize though. Yes, you're right. Some do, but you don't see as much of it as I would think you would, because they get, there's one guy, I think everybody knows who he is, who's verticalized in HVAC, and he's got a great practice because he did that a long time ago. Yeah.
I love like the weird niches like that. When I was doing financial planning work, I found this guy who he became the financial planner for all the professional fishermen, like who were on the fishing circuit. And he just like, there's nothing unique about managing their money other than that they, like professional athletes, get, sponsorships and they get big pots, when they win and stuff like that. But he was like, I'm your guy. Like I know exactly what you need.
He can talk fishing too.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. He's been on all the tours.
Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah.
Love the deal. I don't think any of us can buy it unless we're an MD. That's where my head's at on it. So
I'm not going back to school now.
It's too late.
I will say, I mean, if this were in Columbia, South Carolina, I would totally try and find a way to put like a deal together around it. Like if this is in your backyard and you like, I know enough physicians, one of them's probably entrepreneurial enough. Like it would be worth looking at.
I mean, I love the whole space. I would be interested in getting a book on this just to understand the economics, right? Mm-hmm. What's the payer mix? Who gets the cut of the actual CPAP machine? Do they just refer that out to, some retailer? How much of that is covered by insurance? How price sensitive or not price sensitive is the purchase of the CPAP machine? What's the ongoing residual from these patients? And then you kind of pick out the spot in the value chain where most of the value accrues. And it might be the clinic. It might be the guy slinging the CPAPs to people paying with insurance and don't care what the price is. I'd be interested to learn.
That's a great point.
Which, by the way, can be a reason to get books and talk to sellers as a way to learn about the industry. Like if you are interested in the sleep industry and you think there are tailwinds here and you'd like to find an entry point into the industry, learn about businesses that are for sale. Meet the CEOs. Try to understand the value chain and sniff your way to the target set that makes sense for you.
I talked to a friend the other day who had done that, and he owns an existing business, but he got really curious about like workforce housing and like kind of more lower income property management. Went under LOI on a deal, fell in love with it, and the deal ended up not going through. But he's like, now I have all this expertise and I have a premise and like a thesis. I'm going to go find another. I've already kind of done the work and been down the path. Now I just want to go find one that actually does work.
Makes sense.
All right. So thumbs up, thumbs down on this one. Mills, where are you at? Sounds like you're thumbs up except for Detroit.
Yeah. I love Detroit. It's just a long way away from Columbia, South Carolina.
I agree with you. Suburban Detroit, not bad. Not bad. Even parts of downtown Detroit. Other parts of Detroit, not amazing.
Tons of revitalization. It's really cool.
Bill?
I'm thumbs up just because I like the industry. I don't know if I can buy it because I'm not a doctor, but I'm interested. I also like the price, 2.7 times, almost 2 million of cash flow. This is a sizable business. This isn't 200,000 of cash flow.
Yeah.
This is 2 million of cash flow priced at 2.7x. That's pretty good.
Heather?
I'm thumbs up, but I think the cash flow probably adds back the physician's salary, like an SDE. I'm suspicious of that, but
Heather, you're such a wet blanket.
I'm sorry, but I'm still probably realistic. Thumbs up. I want to learn more. Yeah.
That's very realistic. That's a good point. I think that's definitely the case.
Yeah, I'm thumbs up on this one. It makes me wish I'd gone to medical school, though that would have been horrible. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening this week. If you do dig into this one, learn more about it than we know, there's money to be made here. Tell us how you're going to do it. So keep us posted. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.